Hey guys, I've been making some progress boxing up all those loose tubes I picked up recently from an old radio and TV repair shop. Amazingly, I've only found this many duds. It is tedious, but it's a lot safer and easier to find tubes when they're boxed up like this. So just as I'm getting dug into this project, what shows up with these two gigantic boxes? What I hope is in here are two good picture tubes. I found a seller on eBay who was selling a 17-inch picture tube, but it wasn't a model that I needed. However, in the description he mentioned that he had a few others, so I've been trading emails with him, and I settled on a 16-inch, the early style, like this one that's flat with sharp corners, and then a more modern rounded one. They're used, but he says they test good. But there's always a chance they get damaged in shipping. I've had it happen before where one of the elements inside the picture tube broke loose during shipping. Luckily, I was able to repair it, but yeah, it's always a chance. However, he wasn't asking all that much, and I hope if these test good, maybe I can pick up some others for him. Now, as for what I wanted these for, I'll show you that in another room. I did some earlier videos on what I called a Frankenstein Motorola or Frankenrolla. What that really was a cabinet and a chassis that were mismatched. While I was working on my Sentinel 430, I was tipped off about a chassis that had a compatible picture tube, but just a chassis and picture tube, no cabinet. And it was really cheap, so I picked it up. Later on, I found a listing for an empty Motorola cabinet, but that model didn't use quite the same chassis, and the picture tube was a little bit bigger. However, when I put the two together, they did fit pretty well, and that's what you're looking at right now. This is supposed to be a 17-inch set, but right now I've actually got a 16-inch picture tube in there, and that's the early flat rectangular type of 16-inch tube. So I was going to go with this because it fits okay, although there are some gaps around the edge. But now that I had a chance to get these tubes, my new plan is to take this chassis out, which was designed to have a 16-inch tube, and retrofit the 17-inch tube that this set is supposed to use. Because electrically the tubes are compatible, they're just a little bit different physically. I may have to modify the chassis a little bit to hold it. But my hope is that I can get the CRT to fit snugly into the screen and get the set working, and take this picture tube, which is really, really good, and put it into my Sentinel, which I left the original tube in, and it's not that bright. This is one of my finest sets, so I really want to put the best picture tube I have in it. And as for the other 16-inch tube I picked up, well, it's always nice to have some spares, because I actually have two other sets of these 16-inch tubes, and they're kind of hard to come by. Well, first things first, I'm going to pop open those boxes and see if those CRTs are actually any good. Well, wouldn't you know it, just as I was cutting into these boxes, another box showed up. This one is from an online electronic surplus site called the Electronics Goldmine. I saw a tip on the Antique Radio Forum that they were selling a grab bag of 47 microfarad 450 volt caps really cheap. So here they are. I got 50 of them. I think it was 10 bucks, something like that. I'll have to check the invoice to be sure on that. Now these aren't as high quality as the ones I usually use. I think these are a Chinese brand, and I'm not sure what the temperature rating is. 105 degrees Celsius. Not bad. And they're a little bit physically larger than the skinny Nishikans I use, but certainly for certain projects, lesser quality, this is a great deal. Also bought, wow, this is bigger than I thought it would be. I bought an assortment of heat shrink tubing. It was kind of vague as to exactly how much you would get. I think this was like, I don't know, 4 or 5, 8 bucks worth of heat shrink tubing, something like that. Different colors, different diameters, different lengths. Great stuff to have, all kinds of uses for it. Got some fuses, and got some milling bits for my Dremel tool, And I got some 0.47 microfarad caps and so on and so forth. Got some line cords, cheap. What I'm hoping I can do on these is these are more modern AC plugs. These won't quite fit onto vintage gear, but if you split that and spread them apart a little bit and then maybe hot glue it with a spacer in between, they'll fit on, no problem. What I really wanted to show you, well, I'll have to do some more digging, but somewhere in here is a non-polarized cap that I can use in my Philco 37611. Okay, according to the invoice, it was 10 bucks for those 50 caps, so they still have the sale going on, so check it out. It's the electronicsgoldmine.com. There's their website URL. Here are the caps I was looking for. These are real, honest to goodness, non-polarized capacitors designed for AC to hold a load. These are like starter caps for AC motors. If you recall, I wanted to reduce the power consumption on the series dropping resistor for the filament wires, for the series wired filament tubes in that set, and I hooked up 2 polarized caps back to back to make a non-polarized. Well, this is a real non-polarized, so I'll be popping one of these in there. And they do actually carry some quality Nichicons as well, so I picked up some of those. So. All in all, it's a pretty good site there. Well, you never know what you'll find there. Some terminal strips, good prices, lots of fun stuff. All right, back to the picture tubes. So far, so good. I don't hear any rattling glass. Picture tubes are a real pain to ship because you got that long, delicate neck sticking out with a real heavy blob of glass on the other end. Use some double thickness cardboard and stack 2 boxes inside to build up enough space inside. And it looks like in the sea of peanuts here. Oh boy, I'm gonna have a mess to clean up. I can tell already. Here's the neck, and it looks like he put a soup can around it, or something like that. Not a bad idea. I'll have to remember that in the future. I've gotten a few picture tubes shipped to me, and seen lots of crazy homebrewed protection for the neck. Alright, well, there is one of the 2 bases sticking out. Cap is loose, but I know how to fix that. Alright, well, there's just a sea of peanuts in here, so I gotta sit down the camera and be careful. I'm gonna have a really big mess to clean up. Alright, that was a 17-inch one. It survived the journey intact. I've never actually seen one of these up close and personal before. It weighs a ton. The base is cocked at a bit of an angle and it's a bit loose. So I may end up unsoldering these few pins and reseating it properly and use some RTV silicone to hold it in place. I just hope it's still good. I don't see a getter anywhere, but on these it can be a little tricky to find. Oh, no, there. Oh, I think it's down in there. I think it's still good. Hook it up to the tester and find out for sure in a moment. And here's the other one. This time he did what I do when I've shipped tubes before, is to put a boxer on the base. So when you ship these, you want to have the heavy side down, which is the face. Have the neck stick up, and then put something around it like a box to protect it from being broken. Now, really, ideally, you would have an original shipping carton, but those are really hard to come by. So inside the box, there's concentric padding for the neck. And just set on top of it. Now, there's several variations that are all electrically compatible, just slightly different physicals. There's 16TP4, 16KP4, 16RP4. So I'm not entirely sure which you shipped me. I asked for a KP4 if possible, otherwise a TP4. I don't see a marking anywhere. Pull this guy out, take a closer look. Well, unfortunately, what the seller sent me was two 17-inch tubes rather than a 16 and a 17. This one is clearly a 17 BP4. I don't see a clear label on this anywhere that makes sense to me. And I didn't see a number on the neck, but you can just tell physically that they're the same size. Oh well, I'll contact the seller, see what's up. I'll probably just end up keeping the better one and sell the other off because I only have one 17-inch set. I really hope I can find a number on this though, because although they're the same size, you can see that the necks are a little bit different. The CRT looks a little bit fatter, and I think the neck is a little bit longer, like maybe half an inch or so. Because there were a lot of different models of 17-inch picture tubes. And it'd be really, really nice to know which one it is for sure. But when it comes to testing them, I think they're pretty much all the same. So I'll get out my tester and see how they do. Okay, we have filament glow on the first CRT. No shorts. No shorts. Cutoff's working fine. And just for emissions. Emissions are very good. And life test. I've only had this tube on for a couple minutes, so the life test might not be great, but yeah, it's not bad. It's better than the last couple tubes I checked, so. CRT certainly has life. And the seller told me it did, but you know, it doesn't hurt to double check. Now for the other tube. I've got the other CRT hooked up for testing. The Suncor CR70 doesn't have an adapter socket for these older tubes. They just give you these alligator clips. It's what they call the universal adapter. Kind of a pain to use because they have a tendency to just fall off from the weight of the cable pulling them down. But I think I've got it on there pretty securely. I'm pretty sure this CRT was rebuilt because there's a pretty bumpy kind of seam along here. When they rebuild them, they carefully evacuate the tube by opening up the end here, and then they use a hot wire and break the glass cleanly, pull out the whole electron gun assembly, put a new one in, a new glass tube, weld it back on, and re-evacuate the tube. This one has one, but it's barely noticeable, and sometimes they had that when they came fresh out of the factory. However, the label on this one, it does look like something a remanufacturer would have put on there. It does not look like a label that would have come from the original CRT manufacturer, Allen Electronics Corporation. If it was the original, it would say RCA or Sylvania or something like that. Plus they put their own serial number on there. The other thing that happens when they rebuild the tube is, of course, because they replace the neck and the base, is that you lose quite often the model number of the CRT, which could account for there not being one anywhere on this. However, I just used the same settings as I used for this guy. And let's see what we get. So the filament's glowing. No shorts. No shorts. Cutoff control is responsive. A little jumpy though. Could be some dirty contacts. Like I said, these clips are not the greatest things. Okay, and emission. And this one tests good as well, so let's do a life test. Wow, now that's a good life test. If you've been following my videos, I've tested a few CRTs lately, and when I push that button, the needle starts dropping slowly. Here's what a really good CRT looks like. So I'm going to push the button right now. Just barely moves. That's what a really good CRT tests like. So I think what I will do is, first off, I have to actually finish restoring that Motorola set. And assuming this CRT works out, I guess I'll keep this one because it seems a little bit stronger, and sell this one off. I think that there's some guys looking for one of these. And I'm going to contact the seller, and he said he had a few more, so hopefully he's got a 16 floating around somewhere. I took some pictures and asked around online for help in identifying this picture tube, and got a couple good ideas. One is that maybe when they rebuilt it, they cut the neck a little bit too long, and that accounts for the difference. Two, that this might be something like a 17 QP4, which is a cylindrical face, versus this, which is a spherical face. What that means is a spherical face CRT curves in both directions. So I pulled out this stick, so you can see that the stick rocks both horizontally and vertically. So this is like the face of a gigantic ball. A cylindrical CRT would only curve this way horizontally. Vertically it would be straight up and down, like our early Trinitrons were, I believe. But when I put my stick up against it, you can see it does rock. Not quite as much as the other, but it's certainly not cylindrical. So the mystery continues. The one reason I really want to know is that even though it tested okay with the same settings that I used for this guy, there is a matter of focus. This CRT uses what they call magnetic focus, meaning there's a big coil of wire that sits around here, and the current through it's varied to produce a nice sharp picture. Well, there's another type, which is electrostatic focus, which does not use a big coil of wire. Instead, you put a voltage on one of these pins and you vary that to control the focus. However, I think if it was electrostatic focus, there would be an extra pin on the base, and this doesn't have it. So, well, I guess the only way to really find out for sure is to pop it into a set and see how it plays out. But I'm sorry I can't do that right now, but I will get to it fairly soon, I hope. And that is all for now, I'm afraid.